Well, what I would kind of add or present to this aspect of the discussion, because I'll go off the rails at some point later down the road. Um, you've heard me say it before. To to be white is to have the privilege of opting out, of not knowing. And what he was, I can't remember where he said it was from. It was some state that is heavily white, like Nebraska, Kansas, or Iowa. He was from one of them. So the experience of black people is simply not relevant to him growing up. The idea that he can say that these things were brought to him in the seventh grade is kind of novel to me because I have no idea when any of these things started to be taught around me. And I moved my whole life. I went to, I mean, I, from kindergarten to college was 11 schools, right? So, and always predominantly white schools. So it's just interesting to me that he can even kind of pinpoint it. But he's also an educator, so he may have already researched that to see when this was more or less introduced into his curriculum. But the thing that I would kind of get at that you were just sharing, Anna, is everyone isn't even taught to be aware or uh, concerned about things that are brought to them. See, to be black or indigenous or Asian, any group other than quote unquote white, because I know white is an amalgam, whatever. It's a collection of identities. Um, because white is kind of like an unfair term. It's used as a term of convenience because most white people can say that I come from Scotland and Ireland. I come from England and France. I come from right. They they can track it because there are clear records, official records and family records that take them all the way back into the Middle Ages. Okay, so they know where they come from. So white is just a collection of identities, and it's very flexible, extremely flexible. So you have white people who appear to be white, but then you also have like people who are from India are treated as white. They're classified as white, even though they look like me. Okay, but there's some kind of weird exception. They're not called Asian, which they should be called if you're not going to call them Indian, but they get to be white. So white is a status. It's a catch-all. But black, in the way that we tend to use it, that is actually pointing at a specific group. That is looking at people who descend from Africa, but because there are no records for us, right? We came over as bills of lading and as livestock and as random tools and equipment. Like there was no nothing. You kidnapped this person and you shipped him, and if he survived, he survived. If he didn't, he didn't. If it was a woman, well, we raped her and got her pregnant before she even got here, and if she made it, she made it. If she didn't, she did it. Like that's what uh, got us here. So when you say black in the general sense, you're talking about our entire tribe. You're talking about our entire identity. So that's why if you've ever seen me write anything, when I say black, it's always capitalized because it's a specific thing. It's a specific group. But when I say white, I lowercase it. I'm not doing that because I'm being discriminatory. I'm doing that because I know that white is not a true identifier, right? Um, so he's coming from that kind of viewpoint where he was unaware because he didn't have to be aware. His introduction to slavery was done as an aside. Um, it's I guarantee it was because that's how I was taught. Right? We were taught about the happy slave and about them living in a shack, and sometimes people did mean things to them, and they worked in the fields. That's what you're taught. You don't get none of the other stuff.